Yesterday I had a visit from the local brothers of the Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. I live in an area where I moved into as a disfellowship person, never made contact with anyone. So they kind of stumbled upon me out in the door-to-door work. Some sisters did, and then they went back and told the elders and said there's a guy living there that's, he's disfellowshipped. And so they came to do their visit. And, the first time he came by, I was working in the yard, I couldn't talk. And I just want to relate what was said and some of the attitudes that as I'm out now and I'm looking at these people, I remember how I used to be the same, and you could see the mental brainwashing is what I would call it. I always hated that term brainwashing or cult because I thought that was very derogatory. It is. But I thought it was inaccurate. But in a way, to be a Jehovah's Witness, you must remain somewhat brainwashed. You must turn off your critical thinking skills, if most people don't have them, and you must turn off any of your own thinking. You have to simply obey and trust that this is God's organization. And once you buy into that, I just saw it in these brothers' eyes that you can say anything, they can do anything, tell them anything, and they're going to follow that organization. So anyway, they came up to my yard the first day and said, we heard you're that young brother, that very old guy, is like 75 years old, and you're that young brother that is lost, and we're looking for you. We're so glad we found you, and it's so wonderful that Jehovah has directed us here, and we want to help you. We're here to help you. And I said, I don't think I need any help. I mean, help me with what? You going to help me with my yard? I mean, what are you talking about? And I know what they're talking about, but he looked at me like, and I just thought, one, that's the first thing. What arrogance to come to you and say, I'm in a position of need because I'm not with them. So I just thought, wow, that's so arrogant. They don't realize it, but that's what it is. Anyway, they came back another day, which was yesterday, sat down, and of course in the beginning were very loving and kind, and we're so glad we found you, and God wants us to find that one lost sheep, and I appreciated that. I said thank you, but I thought we'll see how long this lasts, because I've had this experience before years ago when I left, and I was amazed how quickly these mature older brothers, these men, when you start talking to them as men, not as a little kid looking up to them and saying, please don't be mad at me, which is what we're supposed to feel around them, and you give them things that they don't like to hear, they become so unloving and unchristian that it really was a shock to me. And it really just shows what I would call hypocrisy. This is the first time I really wanted this meeting to go well. It's like I told them, I said, I am a Christian, I love God, I have a real problem that I can't go back to be a Jehovah's Witness because I still have this thing in me that might be true, and it's all that stuff. I was raised in it. But the things that are wrong about it, specifically false prophecies, the false teachings, the wrong doctrines that are not biblical, and the mind control, harsh controlling of people's consciences by the governing body and all that, just literally drove me to a nervous breakdown some years ago. And as I went through that, I went through a lot of things and eventually became disfellowshipped and never wanted to go back. But lost family members, that are shunning me, won't talk to me, think I'm being led by apostates and all kinds of things. Well, these guys said, tell us where you're at. So I told them. I said, I have a problem with, the generation teaching was changed right in front of my eyes. I was a pioneer at the time. I was a kid, but I was pioneering. And what I was teaching the day before is God's truth that identified us as the true organization. The next day at the Watchtower was changed to something completely different. That whole thing for 80 years, gone. Forget that. What generation teaching? And I said, I personally do not believe God works that way. I don't believe this change in the newest doctrine of the faithful and discreet slave that just happened a few months ago. I said, when those things happen, why do you not stand up and leave? Why do you not, at the very least, question that maybe these people are full of crap and that God does not work through false information? I asked him a simple question. Is something that was a previous teaching that is now changed today, was that teaching true before? I mean, the obvious answer is no. It's either true or it's false. There's a third category, new light or readjustment. And this guy refused to accept the fact that what the Watchtower used to teach that they've changed now, and they admit they no longer teach, was false. Because that word false is not part of God. It's not part of God's organization. We're the truth. We're not the false. And I said, that's the problem I have. No, 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 no. You're being arrogant. You're being presumptuous. No, no, no. How dare you talk about Jehovah's organization? That, oh, how we need adjustment. We need adjustment. It's just like the apostles. I said, what's like the apostles? Well, just like the apostles. They had misunderstandings. We're all imperfect men, just like the apostles. And I said, well, no. The apostles were followers of the representative of Jehovah, which I guess as regular witnesses we are. My problem isn't with the followers being confused. My problem is with the person at the top representing God. When did that person, meaning Jesus back in the first century, ever do anything like this? Huh? They couldn't grasp. They kept thinking, well, we're imperfect and they're imperfect and we're all imperfect. This is the way it's always been. And I said, no. The apostles were not God's representative on earth dispensing spiritual food. It was Jesus that was doing it. He said they were confused about Jesus' kingdom and all that. And I said, listen, confusion's fine, imperfection's fine. That's not the point. The point is you are imperfect. And placing somebody above others as an imperfect person and mandating they believe these things is the problem. And I said, I cannot go out and preach, things that I think may or may not be true. I said, why should I trust this source of so-called food? And he looks at me and he goes, well, if you would have stayed in the truth, you would have lost your family. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. Where is this left? You left Jehovah. Now where are you at? Look at the Bible you have. The only Bible I had available was a Gideon's Bible. I still have a New World Translation somewhere, but it's packed away. I just grabbed the first one. I said, I don't have it with me, but this should be close enough. I know it's close enough. And he's like, look at the Bible you're using. It doesn't have God's name in it. Where are you? Where are you? You're not going to a church or Kingdom Hall. You're lost. You lost your family. You went off into drinking and partying, and because I had told him that I had a wild year or two when I lost my freaking mind because I had a nervous breakdown because Armageddon didn't come and I wasn't in paradise and I was getting older and my kids were getting older and nothing was happening the way I had thought was supposed to be since birth. And I tried to explain to them and say this is very harmful, this psychological damage that this did to me and others. I said it doesn't do it to everybody, but if you're paying attention, I really believe the ones that are paying attention get hurt. They get the damage and the confusion because they're paying attention. So when the Watchtower says the world is going to end, your friends are going to die, brothers, you must face the fact, young people, that you will never grow old in this system of things. These are all things we've heard. This generation will not pass away 1914 until the end is here. So we used to count the anointed to see how many were left alive, which is kind of a morbid thing if you think about it. So we're all waiting. When it didn't happen, they expect you to just go, oh, well, let's just keep waiting, or so what, it's no big deal. I said, it's a really big deal. A certain amount of years of my life gone by, I missed certain opportunities. I didn't go to school. I've struggled with work and money for all my life, which affected my children, affected my wife, affected me personally, affected my feelings about myself. I have tons of guilt, and I realized why I have the guilt, because they are a guilt trip machine, telling me, bringing up these past things that they don't know nothing about, except for what I just offered to tell them, that I had made some horrible mistakes that I regretted, but I recovered my life, and So rather than address what I said, rather than talk about anything I said, this guy said, well, he brought up a guilt trip of throwing in my face how I lost my family. And he said, no matter what you think about these other doctrines, if you just come back, you could have your family back. What's wrong with you? Which is not true anyway. But I was like, are you kidding me? You're suggesting that I go do something that is against my conscience without resolving this to get just for my own personal gain? What? And you realize that's what shunning is about. Don't talk to them, don't give them any connection, and they'll miss you so much that they'll want to come back for that alone. That is bizarre. And when this guy said this 80-year-old man who'd been in the organization for 60 years, who had this aura of, circuit overseer kind of just wise, and he started getting angry and cutting me off and telling me that I was lying. The society never ever said the end was going to come on a specific date. I couldn't believe that came out of his mouth. And I said, well, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, everybody knows this. Where'd you get this information? I said, well, where'd you get this information? I said, you're going to ask me if I got it from apostates. Exactly. You got it from apostates because you didn't get it from witnesses. And I said, I got it from the Watchtower. If it's truly written in the Watchtower, does it matter who told me? Yes, because they have a different slant on everything. And I realized that at that moment, that everything I've always known, but you just see it in front of you. You're looking at these two guys that are 70, 80 years old. Their whole life has been dedicated to this. And they are fools. I mean, their only power is in lording it over you. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to guilt me back, get angry, would not listen to anything I said, would not address anything I said. I didn't think they would, but I figured they'd be respectful. They were not, which shocked me. And I realized I was looking at two fooled, misled old guys that could not use critical thinking, don't even know what critical thinking means, couldn't use logic, couldn't respect another person's view, couldn't even think along what you're saying. All they want to know is if you're going to comply with what they're saying. And if you do that, oh, there's smiles. You're going to comply? Oh, good. I mean, it was so weird. And I thought back to me being a witness, and I remember those kind of brothers. And I remember the guilt. They were just piling his guilt on me. You know, you've left Jehovah, you've left your family. What have you gained from this? Nothing. You know, you need readjustment. There's still hope for you. You can survive Armageddon. You can be readjusted. And he kept using that word readjusted, which reminded me of something like, you know, George Orwell's 1984, readjustment. And I looked at the guy, and I'm in a different place than I was when I left because they don't have that kind of power over me. I felt sad for them, actually. And I was angry. And I looked at him and I said, look, it's very simple. I believe a thing is either true or it's false. If you go out and say something is true and it turns out not to be true, a person has a right to question why that was said in the first place and not trust that person anymore for saying a false thing. When it happens repeatedly over 150 years, a person is only really stupid if they continue to trust that source. I said, so it's not about God that I don't love God. I do. That's why I'm not there. Oh man, they got so angry. Well, God isn't anywhere else. Where are you going to go? Christendom? Where are you going to go? And I said, you know what? That's the question I'll resolve for myself. But that's not the point. The point is, brothers, if you think that you're in a false religion, where you go is the second thing to worry about. The first thing is, go. Get out. So I said, you're not really answering any of my questions and you're not willing to address them. In fact, you're denying that they even exist. And when he said, how does this organization hurt you? It doesn't hurt anybody. I don't even know what these people are talking about. So apostates have nothing to complain about but make up things because Jehovah's organization is wonderful. It never hurt anybody. And I looked at this guy and I thought, man, if I was in this guy's congregation, I'd want to punch him in the face. I mean, this is the guy that's supposedly caring for people, and you realize their care is totally based upon you. It's conditional. As long as you're doing what they think you should do, and they can put you in a certain box, they throw false love on you. As soon as you say, wait a minute, I don't think I agree with you, not that I disagree with everything, not that you're horrible, not that I'll even call you a Christian, whatever, we can debate that. No. What I was saying wasn't true. It was lying. I was lying, making it up. I wasn't hurt by them. It was my misinterpretation of the watchtowers. It was my own creation in my own mind. I did it to myself, and what's wrong with you? You can get your family back if you just come back. Arrogant, judgmental, unchristian, unloving people. Which I have a hard time saying that, but it's really true. And if they come around again, I'll tell them to have nothing to do with me. Do not come on my property again. I kind of regret that I didn't. But I sent them off with a handshake, and they got up and left when they were done. When they were done abusing me, and they realized I wasn't going to go, oh, please, brothers, they left. They just got up and I said, you're done? They're like, yeah, well, there's no point in talking to you. You're not going to do anything we're asking you to do. So, but there's still time to be readjusted. You can be readjusted. Think about it. And I said, well, you haven't answered any of my complaints. You haven't even addressed them. You haven't even agreed that they exist. So I have nothing to discuss with you. Really sad occurrence. Depressed me for about a day and a half. And I'm glad I'm out, folks. So there you go.